This is McCook's Mr. Bill. It is an honor to have you here. Well, out of China, a new flu strain is coming through. A new flu strain. But let's take a step back and look at people and animals throughout history having trouble together. I think without question, the greatest disaster of all times has to be in the Dark Ages, when the rats took over a lot of the lower class cities, and they brought disease in with them, with the mites, and it was called the Black Death, bubonic plague. Killed 100 million in Europe, they talk about, took out another 40 million in China, and God knows how many other places took a beating from the Black Plague. And if you think it's just then that happened, you'd be mistaken. Just across the border over here in Kansas, a young man, he shot a prairie dog and walked up and picked it up and looked at it and tossed it down. Didn't hold it for over a few seconds. Be that as it may, later, in short order, he started getting sick. And before they could figure out what happened to him, he died. But the autopsy said he got bubonic plague from just touching that prairie dog. Keep that in mind. It wasn't just then. You need to worry and keep an eye out for that type of thing today and leave wildlife alone. I could advance on, and the first conquistadors, the Spanish that came over to the Americas, and the old priests, they told them, don't have sex with the Indian women. That's a sin to have sex with those women. Okay. So they decided to have sex with the llamas. That's right, llamas. Yeah, that's a twisted kind of mindset, ain't it? But that's what they did. Now, llamas didn't have syphilis, but they carried it. And they gave it to the men. And they, in turn, took it back to Europe. That's right. And it was a devastating thing for the culture, and mankind never had that before, and never would have had it, except for then. Yeah. And of course, AIDS is quite often talked about as a monkey disease. And more than a few people use the rumor that it was a person in Africa that had sex with a monkey, is where that got transmitted and turned into AIDS for the rest of the world to face. And so many people have suffered and died because of it, and it's still out there today. Yeah. And if you think it's just the devastating, there's smaller events. Even right here in McCook, Nebraska. When I was a kid in the 1950s, a number of dime stores, they called them back then, they had turtles for sale, little bitty turtles, and they had a United States stamp stamped on the back of that little turtle, little bitty guys. Now I think they wanted $1 a piece for them back then. That was a lot of money, but that's what they wanted for them, and kids bought them by the bushel. Absolutely, they bought them. And I wanted one, but my folks said, no, if you want a turtle, go out and get a box turtle out in the country for free. So that's what I did, but be that as it may, those turtles being sold, all of a sudden a lot of kids started turning up with salmonella, because you see, turtles carry it. Most reptiles do. They carry a salmonella. A lot of kids were getting sick. A few even died from it. Keep that in mind, on that mindset. And so critters have not always been just what you think they should be. But here some years ago, a flu came out of China, and they said that came from a duck. From a duck. Now, I'm not saying a human had sex with that duck, but at the same time, it came from a duck, being in close quarters with ducks. Well, now, this flu, they're saying, came from a snake. I said a snake. Now, again, I'm not saying the guy had sex with a snake, but whatever contact he had with that snake, the snake was, at the very least, a carrier of this flu. As crazy as it sounds. So keep all of that in mind, and also remember this newest flu is only killing about 3% of the people over there in China, and they don't have the medical care that we have here. So right now, we have a lot more people dying from the regular flu than is being killed by this new flu. But we'll keep an eye on it and use some common sense. Keep your hands washed if all possible. I see people starting to carry masks. Even here in McCook, I see a few people with masks on. But you can do just about as much, if not better, by just putting some Vaseline on just the insides of your nostrils to catch any of the bad stuff coming through. That's my humble opinion. Thank you, and you guys have a good day.